Mr. Reichlin-Melnick, so the expansion of parole is legal?
In my opinion, yes.
Mr. Wolf, it says you served unlawfully. You want to share with us whether you served this country unlawfully?
So I've spent 7.5 years at the Department of Homeland Security. I was there shortly after 9/11 when they stood it up. I was there all 4 years during the Trump administration. I've held 8 executive positions at the department, including an assistant secretary position, an undersecretary position confirmed by the U.S. Senate, a deputy chief of staff position, a chief of staff position, and an acting secretary position. So I've been to the border dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I've talked to the men and women of the Border Patrol, of ICE agents, USCIS personnel. And so my expertise in this, whether you want to call me an acting secretary, you want to call me a dog catcher, my expertise is what it is. And I was also very proudly part of an administration that actually secured the border, put policies in place to bring back the rule of law and to secure the border.
So we just heard that the Trump administration paroled people into this country. Did you parole over 1 million people into this country during the Trump years?
No, we did not.
Mr. Bradbury, I believe we have the largest human trafficking operation, perhaps in the history of the world, that is going on at this point. And do you think the American people are aware of the role of NGOs driving these, running the pipeline to our border?
No, and I think that role has been sort of surreptitiously concealed by the way the administration has handled this. But they are contracting with non-governmental organizations to transport illegal aliens from the border to every district in the country. Do you
think some people that donate to some of these sometimes faith-based organizations, NGOs, do you think they're aware that their money is being used as an accessory for human exploitation and trafficking?
I seriously doubt most people are aware. They should be.
Yeah, I would urge people that that contribute to faith-based organizations, you should ask them. In fact, I would say to you, Mr. Chairman, I think we should have the head of Catholic Charities come before this committee and explain what they're doing down on the border to facilitate this illegal immigration that's going on in this country. Great work has been done by many of these faith-based organizations, but I think the American people should fully understand what's going on there. Mr. Bradbury, recent Florida lawsuits against the Biden administration have shed considerable light on DHS, but also the Office of Refugee Resettlement and what they're doing. Can you briefly explain how the NGOs and OR are facilitating this unprecedented human trafficking, especially of migrant children?
Well, of course, under the Trafficking Victim Protection Reauthorization Act, there are special duties that the Secretary of Homeland Security has to ensure that migrant children who are brought into the country not from Mexico, but from other countries, are placed with guardians in a way through HHS that ensures that they're not abused. They don't become the victims of sex trafficking or forced labor. But unfortunately, we know that that's happening.
Are you familiar with yes, it is happening. Are you familiar with the, let's see here, the third presentment of the 21st statewide grand jury in Florida, where they talked about trafficking children?
I'm not, I'm sorry.
I'd like to enter this into the record, if we may, Mr. Chairman. Everyone should read this about the horrific human trafficking that's going on that the state of Florida has identified.
Without objection.
Have the court orders been followed by this administration when they've been told they need to follow the law, Mr. Wolf?
I think in several instances they have not.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would just close with this. We heard from the other side that these are just policy differences that we have between the two sides. Tell that to Erin Rockwall from Pewaukee, Wisconsin, who was here a couple months ago. Remember her? Remember her son took, I think it was like a Percocet pill, something like that, Mr. Chairman, died in his dorm room. Tell that to Kayla Hamilton's mother. She was just here in the last month, wasn't she, Mr. Chairman? Strangled to death. Autistic young woman by someone who was here illegally. Tell that to all the angel families out there. I urge everyone here, A Democrat candidate for president was at the border in the last couple days in Yuma, Arizona, and stood with farmers and said, "This cannot go on." I urge Democrats who are of good faith across the United States of America to join us in supporting the Secure the Border Act. You can do that. It turns out there actually is a presidential candidate you can follow if this issue is important to you to secure the border. You do have a candidate that will help us do it.
Gentleman's
I
time
yield
has
back.
expired.